Welcome to PCOM Perspectives, where we discuss news, events, research, and other topics impacting our campuses and communities. Today, I'm chatting with Dr. Lisa Corbin. We'll talk about managing your mental health during the holidays and ways to help you cope with common end-of-year stressors. Join us as we share our PCOM perspectives. Hello, I'm your host, Dr. Jay Feldstein, and today I'm joined by Dr. Lisa Corbin, Chair and Director of PCOM's Master of Science in Mental Health Counseling program. Dr. Corbin has worked on college campuses for more than 25 years and held positions in both student life and academic affairs. She currently teaches, advises, and mentors mental health counseling students here at PCOM. In addition to her work on campus, Dr. Corbin serves as a counselor in her private practice. Her specialty areas include domestic violence, mindful meditations, and grief and loss support. Today, Dr. Corbin and I will tap into that expertise to discuss how the holidays can impact people's overall mental health and talk through the ways you can cope with any difficult feelings the season may bring. Welcome, Dr. Corbin. I've got a couple of questions for you. So the first one is, the holidays tend to be a difficult time for some people to manage issues of mental health. What is it about this time of year that makes things so challenging?
Yeah, there's a lot of reasons, I think, right? The holidays can be hard for people to manage mental health for a lot of reasons. One would be these increased expectations that we have of ourselves. You know, sometimes we go into the holiday season and we think that we have to be joyful and be happy. And for some people, that really isn't the case. And they can feel a lot of stress and anxiety. I think sometimes people will feel really lonely and isolated during the holidays because maybe they don't have the support system that other people have. And that can really exacerbate symptoms of depression or even anxiety. I think for other people, it is the financial stress that comes along with the holidays. And we know that financial strain is probably the number one cause of stress for a lot of people. And then we have those lovely dynamics of family that can come along with the holidays, right? So family gatherings during the holidays can sometimes be stressful due to unresolved family conflicts or trauma. And these dynamics can trigger or even worsen some mental health issues. The winter season in and of itself plays a part on people's mood, right? So some people suffer from seasonal affect disorder, and that's because the days are shorter, there's less sunlight out there, and that can really exacerbate some symptoms of depression. And then we have people who might have lost or suffered a significant loss. That can make the holidays really tough because they're realizing that that person's not around and not there. Not everyone celebrates the same holidays. So if we're not celebrating the same holiday, I might feel a bit excluded and isolated once again. And one that I think surprises people sometimes is all of these holidays come at the end of the year. So for a lot of people, they'll sit back and think, wow, what have I and have I not accomplished this past year? And that can cause some anxiety, maybe feelings of failure, and maybe a readjusting of goals for the following year.
Okay, you kind of touched on it in that question and answer, but how do loss and grief specifically uniquely present themselves during the holiday season?
Sure. So it was really interesting because you had mentioned grief and loss were my specialty even before I faced a significant loss myself. And so everything I had known about grief and loss, I suddenly was then facing and realizing, wow, it's so true. Everybody experiences grief and loss differently. And grief is not linear. It really comes and goes in waves. A lot of people think the first year is the worst, but it's really not. Because think about the first year, everyone swarms in to be with that person. But it can be often the second and third years that can be really hard for people too. And grief presents itself in many different ways. Anger, frustration, guilt, sadness. And then the physical pieces of guilt can be things that people don't even realize are associated with the grief, meaning the headaches, the lack of sleep, the brain fog that can come from grief. And so I think for a lot of people, they have to sit back and realize, who are my support systems? Who can help me through this time? Get with their support systems, make sure that they are able to cope. Because for some people, what they'll do is overcommit themselves, keep themselves busy, trying to avoid the feelings of grief and loss. Other people may isolate themselves. And a lot of people, unfortunately, turn to poor coping mechanisms. And so what I say to people is this: look, let's get you through the holidays, but make sure we're not hurting you or anyone you love. And then we can debrief afterwards. And I always encourage my clients to get support. whether that be a support group or individual therapy. But either way, helping professionals really are there to help, and we don't judge.
What are some things people can do to care for their mental health during this time?
Set realistic expectations for the holidays, right? So, and I always encourage my clients, it's okay to say no, and no is a one word answer. And sometimes people will say, but it's really hard to look somebody in the face and say no to them. So I say, you know what you do? Step back and say, can I have a minute to think about this? Or can I get back to you on that? That buys them time to really sit back and think, is this in my and my family's best interest? And if not, then you can send them a text or an email, and they're not always right there in your face. Another one is to prioritize self-care. And self-care looks different to everybody. My self-care, when I get overwhelmed, I like to write lists, and it helps me realize, okay, here's how I can get this done. And then here are the things that I can't get done that I need to put off to the side, manage your schedule and don't overcommit, like I had shared. And ask yourself, is it really worth it? My family and I used to go into New York City to see the Rockettes every year. And we would do this whole thing. It just cost a lot of money. It was a lot of organizing. And my brothers would bring their wives and their kids. And when we'd get there, the kids were hot. They would have to go to the bathroom. They really didn't like it. But we were just doing it because it was a tradition. And then finally I said, hold on a minute. Let's step back from this. And actually, let's just go away one weekend or for a week in warm Florida. And it's after the holidays, so we're all relaxed and calm. And we love it. We love it so much more. And it's now our tradition, because the kids really were not enjoying the Rockettes. Another one is to budget wisely. Like I had shared, the financial stress can be a true strain. So one of the things I encourage my clients to do is to create a list of wants and needs and know the difference. And sometimes I say use your bank card, because if you're using your bank card, right, and you're not going to usually withdraw. But for some people, they say that they don't want to rack up the credit card debt. So the bank card can help them avoid that. Stay connected to friends, family, even if you think that you might be being a burden because maybe they're busy with their own schedules. Make sure you reach out and let them know how you're feeling and what you need from them. Create good boundaries and have an escape plan. So I have a client of mine who drives herself to every family function herself. Her husband and the children go in one car and she goes in the other, because if she's feeling really overwhelmed or she has things to do, she can actually leave and be able to take care of herself in that way. And I say, whatever your escape plan is, make sure you're using it. And then last but not least, seek help from a professional if you need it. We're here. The holidays can be very stressful. We know that suicide rates tend to go up during the holiday season too. So reach out to a helping professional. We're here to help.
No, thanks. I know you got a couple of questions for me.
So this global meta-analysis from 2019 found that roughly 1 in 3 medical students has anxiety, which is much higher than the general population. What are some of the other mental health challenges that medical students commonly face during their education and training? And what does PCOM offer students to help manage these challenges?
The one thing I'd like to start off, and you can appreciate this, is anxiety by itself is not a disease. Okay, it's a feeling, and sometimes it's a quite normal and natural feeling. So I look at medical school, I break it out into the first 2 years, which are the didactic years, and the clinical years, which are the third and fourth year, because they each have their own unique challenges. So you take a first year medical student, you're coming into an entirely new situation. The amount of information they've got to learn and process is overwhelming. It's often equated to drinking from a fire hose. It's a whole new environment, and that's going to make anybody anxious. That's a normal response. I worry more about people who wouldn't be anxious when they start medical school. The most important thing is to put that out there. Hey, it's normal to feel that way. You're not alone. If 275 people, 274 feel exactly the same way you do, whether you're first generation, which may have an increased level of anxiety because they don't know anybody really well to say, hey, what was this like? Or everybody in your family's been a doctor from 1900s. You're still going to have that same feeling. I remember when we got our first biochemistry test back, 40 years ago, when the professor said the class range was 31 to 97, then I'm sitting with my closest friends and we're looking at each other. He goes, do you think we got the 31? We knew we didn't get the 97, but because it happened to us to get the 31. I mean, that's normal. But when it affects you that you can't function, when it leads to depression, when it leads to full-blown anxiety where now you're avoiding things, That's where we're talking about real mental health issues. And I think as an institution, we're providing a lot more counseling services for students on all three campuses across all programs. We've added that over the last several years. COVID certainly didn't help. I mean, that number's pre-COVID, 2019. I'm sure now it's probably even higher. And the most important thing, and I think it's why we have in-person classes as often as we can, is your support structure in medical school is often your peer group. You form study groups. You're people that, okay, if I'm not great in anatomy, but you're great in physiology, we can help each other out, whatever it is. And that support group is that infrastructure that helps support you in the first 2 years. We also have wellness and mental health committees, student run and institution wide. We just kicked off Mental Health Awareness Week. So we're really making those services available to people and erasing the stigma that if you're having issues or problems, please come forward. It's okay. Everybody else does too.
Let's talk a little bit about burnout. We often hear about students facing burnout. How big of an issue is burnout among PCOM students, and what measures are in place to help prevent burnout?
Where's the burnout and what's the definition? I think the biggest challenge for us isn't so much academic burnout as it is life stressors. What's happening in that individual student's family, what's happening with their financial stressors. We tend to hear a lot of financial stresses, and that it may affect somebody's decision making. Well, even though I may need a leave of absence, if I take a leave of absence, I can't get financial aid. So, we're making more and more financial aid resources available to students, in addition to scholarship monies, where we provide a lot of scholarship monies. But, what can we do for people where they've exhausted financial aid? What other financial avenues are available to them to help with the financial burden, which is adding to the stress? The burnout tends to occur, and I don't even like to use the term burnout because it tends to be February in the end of the first, the middle of the first year, in the middle of the second year. The seasonal affective disorder kicks in. It's dark. You're studying really hard. It's dreary. You're exhausted. There's no light at the end of the tunnel. Spring hope's eternal. So as then we get to the springtime, these things tend to get alleviated. It's unusual to see burnout in the third and fourth year, quite frankly. I mean, most people really enjoy their clinical rotations. It really is kind of two separate environments. And then all throughout residency, it's a lot of work, a lot of hours. And that's where I think you probably see more burnout in the residency years than you do in the medical school years.
Yeah, it sounds like there's a lot of those contextual factors, but then also really taking that holistic perspective even to burnout.
Which is, what we're about.
Exactly. And then lastly, what do you see as the future of mental health support in higher education? How do we equip students with the tools to manage these issues when they go into residency or post-degree internships and beyond?
I think it's what we talked about in the beginning. It's, telling people it's okay to feel this way. It's okay to get help, whether it's on campus or through their own personal insurance or through employee assistance programs, and to carry that with them going forward. The support groups, the mental health groups, wellness, self-care, exercise, sleep, stress management, take care of yourself. I mean, you got to take care of yourself before you can take care of anybody else.
That's right.
And we're also doing things trying to change the academic calendar. It's funny. I hear from students all the time. Why is every test on a Monday? Why is every test, every quiz is on a Monday? Why can't we have them on Friday? I said, we have the weekend to study. We don't want the weekend to study. We want the weekend to relax. We want to, take care of ourselves. I said, well, we're actually trying to change the academic calendar so there can be more breaks in between semesters to give people, more time for self-care and to relax. And it's really, taking those tools and carrying them forward into their residencies. And a lot of the residencies now are paying more attention to mental health. And it's really just a reflection of society in general. I mean, mental health on college, undergraduate college campuses, they have the same issues as we do. And students come in with that lack of resiliency. We're trying to teach resiliency. Mm-hmm. And that just what you talked about. I mean, it's a tremendous amount of information. So break it down into simple tasks that you can accomplish and cross it off the list. And the next thing you know, you're at graduation and going, wow, what happened to the last 4 years?
Right. Yeah, what I love about that is you're really saying that we need to listen to our students and ask them what it is that they want and need and do a needs assessment.
Right. And, I think some medical schools, and I think to an extent we're doing it now, is to survey their mental health during orientation week so we know where people are from a baseline.
Yep.
And I also think we haven't, touched on it, but, we can, is a lot of students come in with, special needs. There's a lot of, learning challenges out there, whether it's ADHD, ADD, or processing issues that may or may not get identified in high school or college. And I think that's something we need to explore. Why are some students who we think are successful or not? You can cover over a lot of academic deficiencies in high school and college. When you get to this level, it may not be.
Yep.
So it's really, getting to the heart of the issue. Is it a learning disability? Or is it, stress, or what is it? It's taking that holistic approach.
Mm-hmm. I think sometimes people think, I can do this on my own in graduate school. I don't need it. And don't always get the resources or the help that they need until, unfortunately,
it's too late.
They're struggling.
That's one of the, key messages at orientation.
Yes.
If you need help, ask early. Everybody's here to help you. I mean, trust me, we want you to succeed more than you do.
Mm-hmm.
So ask for help early. Don't come at the end of the semester when you failed 3 quizzes in your midterm and you say, oh, now I got to get 100 in my final to pass. It's too late. You need to come early.
Yeah.
So that's really the message. If you need help, get it early. We're here for you.
For all of it, really.
Right. Dr. Corbin, I want to thank you for joining us today and taking the time to discuss such an important topic. I'm confident your expertise will help us all navigate our feelings during the holiday season and beyond. I'm Dr. Jay Feldstein, and thank you for tuning in to PCOM Perspectives. You can listen to PCOM Perspectives on Spotify or wherever you get your podcasts. Until our next episode, remember, as you navigate the fascinating worlds of medicine and higher education, shifting your outlook can be the key to unlocking new insights and better patient care. Stay curious, stay open, and keep a healthy perspective.